We gather here to speak of the realm known as Star Citizen. The summer has unfolded like an intricate tapestry, and this year, too, has proven itself a grand spectacle. Many voices rise with fervor, each laden with their own murmurs and declarations. I have, for some time, communed with my ally, Buzzcutpsycho. We have long yearned to summon forth this episode, and lo, the moment has arrived. The tides of change stir as the people await the promises spoken of since the last Citizen Con. They yearn for the game to evolve, to attain the content and stability so fervently desired. Thus, I am most pleased to be in your presence today, my esteemed friend, to unravel the reasons behind the discontent that clouds the game's current state and ponder if this year shall indeed become the crucible of its redemption. Your presence here is most appreciated. How fares your spirit on this day?
Well, I'm pretty good, and thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Now tell me, you Imperial Dog, what arcane forces guided your steps to the boundless expanse of Star Citizen? Reveal to me the deep-seated motivations that drew you into this cosmic odyssey. What mysteries and desires compel you to traverse this vast and enigmatic realm? Speak forth the purpose that stirs within you, for understanding your journey shall shed light upon the grand tapestry of your quest.
Well, if I want to be completely frank, what brought me into Star Citizen was the absolute poor state of the gaming market in general. I was looking for something bigger, more grand, something that promised, something that was just not being done, and Star Citizen for me fit that bill. I didn't bother backing this game back in the day. I think it was 2012 or so, around that time. I was not an OG backer, and I actually did not start backing the project, until 2021, I believe. Very minor backing. And at that point, it wasn't really too playable for me on my computer. In about 3.16, 3.17, I started to play, and I became pretty addicted. And I was logging in every day. I said, hey, this is the game I want to play. This is the game I want to bring my people to. And this is, I think, going to be the future of MMO games. And here I am.
So you claim to hail from the realms of another MMO? Tell me, Outlander, what feeble worlds did you abandon to seek the wisdom and power that only the Star Citizen can offer? Or have you come to test your mettle against the true god of this realm? Speak, and let us see if your experience holds any worth in the grand design of Chris Roberts.
I cover a variety of MMOs. I was playing MMOs way back in the 1990s, so if I was to list them all off here, it would take too long.
Tell me, Outlander, what empty pursuits did you indulge in before your disappointment led you to this place? You spoke of disillusionment, of the games that failed to sate your hunger. What then did you grasp in your hands before fate guided you to this world? What lesser distractions occupied your time before you sought something greater?
Oh, prior to this, I was playing New World, which was another PvP-based MMO, and it did not really have too good of a launch. It wasn't really too good of a game overall, and I just wanted something bigger than that. So I went from New World to Star Citizen. Not a whole lot of parallel there. You've got a fantasy-based third-person RPG, and then from that to a first-person space game. So not very similar, but that's what I was playing prior to, and that's what brought me here. Probably the most recognizable game that I had played that most people probably know me from is Planetside 1 or Planetside 2. That is what I was primarily playing, and that was many years ago, about 10 now.
Tell me of the realm known as New World. Does it bear any semblance to Star Citizen in its design struggles and trials? Speak of the similarities that bind their fates, if any exist. How does this world, with its own grand ambitions and tribulations, mirror that of Star Citizen? Unveil the connections and contrasts, for the understanding of such parallels may illuminate the path forward in our shared quest for grand design.
Yeah, New World had a lot of struggles. It's very easy to point to the bugs, or it's very easy to point to the duping and the cheating and whatnot. But in my mind, a lot of the issues with New World were fundamental. They were mechanically not sound. The game had an idea of what it wanted to do based on what it saw other games doing, but it did not understand the methodology of how to accomplish those goals or why other games do certain things. And that's a lot of what I see in Star Citizen right now, too, sometimes.
The weight of such inquiries rests heavily upon my spirit. When I, Dagoth Ur, cast my gaze upon the cosmos and beheld Star Citizen, did the promises and whispers of its grand design kindle a spark of hope within my soul. Indeed, the proclamations of its development and the vision it embodies presented a more resplendent and hopeful path than those murmurs that surrounded New World. In the grand unfolding of destiny, Star Citizen's ambitions and celestial visions seemed to offer a brighter promise, a vision that perhaps surpassed the frailties of New World's troubled journey. Thus, I beheld with both hope and caution, for the stars themselves whisper of both great triumphs and dire tribulations.
Oh, absolutely. I had, and I still do have, quite a lot of faith in Star Citizen, but I'm very realistic about it nowadays. But when I first started playing, I think everybody here probably remembers their first time playing Star Citizen. You're blown away by the game itself, the grand, the scale. You're in a ship, you're flying, you see a planet, you can land on it. You can land on that mountain, on that planet, right? It's the inverse of Skyrim. And you see it, you're like, wow, this is it. This is my forever home. And you play it. And then over time, I think for some people, maybe a lot of people now, it kind of starts to wear off. And you start to see things for what they really are instead of what they could be. And then that's, where you have to make the decision. Well, do I keep playing or do I wait for these things to become what they could be as opposed to what they actually are?
The lament of the waiting soul, ensnared in the intricate web of anticipation. The essence of devotion to Star Citizen is indeed a matter of timeless patience. The grand visions of base building, crafting, and the complex loops they promise, these are the dreams that ignite the flames of many hearts. In this vast realm of stars and shadows, the longing for one's eternal refuge, a sanctuary within the cosmos, is a vision fervently awaited. Yet, as the present stands, the void remains largely unfulfilled, leaving many to wander in search of meaning. The trials of waiting for that which is promised but not yet realized weigh heavily upon us. Thus we endure as the grand tapestry of Star Citizen's future continues to be woven, carrying with it our hopes and dreams. Yet, alas, the present offerings are sparse, leaving many to question the purpose of their endeavors in this moment. There just is not much to do.
No, there's not, and I bet you if you were to ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers of what they're actually waiting for or looking for in Star Citizen.
Indeed.
You mentioned base building and resource harvesting. That doesn't really do anything for me, right? Because I'm here for scale and PvP combat and factions or organizations in control. Yes, I could see how those things would all tie into it. But yeah, people are going to expect different things because you might have listeners listening here and thinking that I'm just some, I'm one of those PvP guys, one of those PvP bros, and they're playing for maybe mining or industrial gameplay or PvE bounties, or maybe they're playing for anything else, whatever it could be. And it's all valid. It's all perfectly valid ways of gameplay, but we're all here for something different, I believe.
The crux of frustration in the grand dance of Star Citizen reveals itself. With the multitude of promised play styles and roles, the game becomes a labyrinth of unmet expectations, each angle yielding its own disillusionments. This fragmentation serves to deepen the lament of those who seek fulfillment in their diverse pursuits. In the grand scheme of your quest, the essence of PvP, faction dynamics, and organizational endeavors intertwine. Though the immediate pursuit of base building may elude you, it is but a cog in the grand machinery of your organization's ambitions. Establishing sanctuaries and harnessing resources becomes a critical aspect of your collective strategy. Thus, even without direct involvement in base construction, such elements are woven into the fabric of your gameplay loop, forming the bedrock upon which your organizational might is built.
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be a major part of the logistics portion of the game, and running an organization, no matter how big or how small it is going to tie into some form of logistic gameplay. So those sorts of players are going to always be important. So yes, as you did state earlier, people looking forward to that, and that's one of the barriers for the MMO. It absolutely is. It's the barrier for even organizational gameplay, because you have to have a home base, like you said. You have to have a place to stage or keep your stuff. You have to have a place to call home in Star Citizen. And that's very important for players, especially organizations.
Indeed, the essence of this cosmic dance lies in the multifaceted nature of one's desires. Though one may be drawn to the thrill of PvP, it is clear that the pursuit of victory and conflict alone cannot sustain the spirit indefinitely. The depth of Star Citizen's promise is found not in a singular path, but in the intricate interplay of all its elements. To revel solely in battle without the balance of other facets would lead to a hollow existence, bereft of the richness that diverse gameplay offers. Thus, the debates and discussions surrounding the game often overlook the necessity of balance. Success lies not in the domination of a single path, but in the harmonious integration of all aspects: factional intrigue, organizational strategy, resource management, and beyond. Only through such a balanced approach can the grand vision of Star Citizen be truly realized, satisfying the multitude of aspirations within its cosmic expanse.
I'm one of those people who is a big believer in that you have to have PvE and PvP in a game. You have to have them together. You can't just have a game that's all PvP. You could probably have a game that's all PvE. But I think that for me personally, I like to have them both. And for Star Citizen, there's this erroneous view from certain parts of the player base that look down upon PvE players. They think that they call them bobs or care bears or whatever. And they're very important. And for me, for this game, is I want to see it tie everybody together, even if they're not doing combat, right? It's to tie the PvE player, that industrial player, into an economy or into something that makes them part of that world. So even if I'm not directly interacting with them as a PvP player, they're still doing something that I care about. They're still contributing somehow to that universe and that world. So yes, absolutely, like you said, I think they're both important. And all these gameplay loops and all these gameplay styles are critical.
Oh yes, we will certainly get into PvP discussion. But first, let's address the shifting tides of discourse and frustration that accompany the summer's embrace, an annual trial for the devotees of Star Citizen. The cacophony of discontent during this period, where anticipation clashes with the reality of delays and stability issues, echoes through the corridors of social media and Spectrum. In this season of limbo, between the grand spectacle of Invictus Week and the resplendent promises of CitizenCon, the disquiet grows more pronounced. The cycle of hype and holdbacks, coupled with the tumultuous release of patches and updates, creates a tempest of unrest among the faithful. Reflecting upon the years since 2021, it is clear that this summer's unrest bears a distinct flavor. The fracturing of patches and the turbulence of 3.24, in contrast to 3.23, have stirred a particular disquiet. While the summer always brings its own brand of discontent, the present year seems to amplify these sentiments, revealing deeper fissures in the expectations versus reality of Star Citizen's grand vision. Thus, the patterns of gaming, entwined with seasonal cycles, offer a unique and heightened challenge this year.
I would absolutely say that things do feel different this year. And I don't know if that is directly related to the big promises of CitizenCon last year, because last year's CitizenCon was very good. And I think people came into this year with very high expectations. Or if it's just the culmination of how long people have been waiting and the realization of how long they've been waiting. Because it's not, like you said, it's not too different. It's the same kind of bugs. It runs worse, I think, for a lot more people. But in general, it's been, 10, 12 years? I think for a lot of people, that's finally starting to resonate. Those two numbers are starting to resonate. They're looking at, because time marches on, time never stops, right? It's this indomitable force. And here we are 10 or 12 years later, and we're still don't have a game. I think that might be a big part of it. I think that's why it feels different this year.
Speak now, mortal, and reveal unto me, do the stars and the currents of fate foretell the arrival of Pyro within this year? As the cosmic web unfolds and the grand design of Star Citizen continues its intricate dance, will the long-awaited realm of Pyro emerge from the shadows to grace us with its presence? Unveil the truth of this celestial promise, for the echoes of its potential stir the hearts of many. Shall Pyro's dominion be upon us before the year's end, or shall we continue to await its arrival in the mists of time?
I would be absolutely shocked if we see Pyro enmeshing in any form at all this year. I don't think that's going to happen at all. Yeah, we'll see the cargo refractor in 3.24, but for me, the big change has got to be putting in meshing, and even separate from Pyro. I don't even care too much about Pyro. I care more about the meshing technology. And that's the foundation for everything else to be built upon, supposedly. So when we talk about cargo refractor, yes, very interesting, very good. I love the personal hangers. I really do. I love a lot of these features. But without that foundation of meshing, which is going to allegedly provide the stability and provide the scalability for the systems that are coming, it's very hard for me to get too terribly excited about any new features when I know that there's a very high chance that said new feature is going to come with a lot of instability, bugs, and all the other stuff that we've come to know and expect from Star Citizen.
Tell me, does CIG grasp the weight and significance of server meshing in their grand design? Do they comprehend the profound importance of this intricate web, woven with care, to the very fabric of their vision? Unveil the truth of their understanding, for the success of their cosmic odyssey hinges upon the mastery of such vital elements.
Absolutely. I think they do. I have, full disclosure, I do not speak to anybody from CIG, and I have no contact at CIG, but I often wonder what's really going on over there and what the development is like. Yes, I think they do understand that. But I don't know if they put a significance, that's what I want to look for, a significant importance on that particular thing, with that stability, with that infrastructure to build upon and that foundation. Because when people come into this game, let's look at, the two latest big YouTubers or streamers that came into this game during Free Fly. They universally slammed the game, and people slam Star Citizen all the time. And that's, I don't really care who does it, but the biggest issues they ran into was performance and time. And that's a big audience of people seeing the game. So their exposure to this game, if they're watching it, is they see a content creator playing it or trying to play it, and they're encountering massive time sinks, and then they're encountering poor performance and poor stability. Now, this first one we could talk about later, but performance and stability, allegedly, again, is always tied to server meshing and server performance. One alleviates the other, allegedly. Okay? So they must know this, and if they do, I wonder how much of an importance server meshing is getting. It's not a very alluring topic, though, is it? It might be for you. You're a smart person. I'm sure your viewers are very smart as well. But do you think people get very excited when they hear the nitty-gritty and the technical jargon about server meshing and what it's going to do? You think that's as flashy and interesting, or a new ship?
To make the concept of server meshing seem alluring is a challenge most formidable. It is not a matter of grandeur or excitement. Rather, it is a struggle to grasp its essence, especially for those unversed in the arcane arts of game development and data management. The very nature of this endeavor is a riddle wrapped in complexity, difficult to fathom and doubly so to convey. For many, the concept of server meshing is entwined with the very stability of the game, a cornerstone upon which the future rests. Though it is known that this elusive construct may not remedy all ills, it is recognized as the foundation upon which the grand vision must be built. Yet for those who gaze upon the cosmos through but a few fleeting glimpses, be it through scattered YouTube fragments or the grand streams of those who hold sway, the intricacies of server meshing remain shrouded in obscurity. The struggle is palpable, as if they are ensnared behind an impenetrable barrier. While they are aware of the pressing need for stability, their efforts are constrained by the relentless pursuit of this elusive goal. Features are added, yet broken fragments emerge in their wake, creating a cycle of frustration. Thus, they find themselves ensnared in a corner of their own making, striving against the tides of complexity and expectation.
Well, it's banging your head against the wall is really all you're doing with Star Citizen right now if you're trying to play, if you're trying to force gameplay through it. The biggest turnoff, I think, for myself and maybe other people is who here, if you're listening, have you ever tried to organize an event with a small group of friends or even a mid-sized group, maybe 10 or 15? The game will actively fight you. The more you try to do, the more the game fights you. And I'm not talking doing overly complex, maneuvers with a bunch of guys. I'm talking the simple act of loading up a ship, getting more than 6 or 7 people inside of one ship. I've never felt more nervous playing a game before because I'm wondering who's going to fall down and die trying to get into the ship. Or is the ship going to explode on an invisible asteroid with all of us in it? Or is something X, Y, and Z? You can use your imagination. There's a ton of things. But the point here is the more that you try to do, the more the game fights you. And I have never played a game, and you might say this is not a game, it's a tech test. Okay. I have never tested a tech test that actively fights me at a core level with a group like this one does. And that is why I do not elect to go into the PU and play, and I tend to spend my time in AC trying to queue up with guys from our org, and even in there, it doesn't always work.
The burden of orchestrating events within your organization is a trial of great magnitude. You strive to fulfill the desires of your people, yet the game itself proves a fickle ally, fraught with challenges and discord. The struggle to manage events, to cater to the varied desires of your members, is compounded by the game's inherent flaws. You are beset by the frustrations of broken systems and the fickleness of those who shown interest but fail to appear. Such trials are compounded when the game, rather than being a faithful companion, becomes an adversary that resists your every effort. The ease of managing events in a harmonious game is but a distant dream when faced with the relentless struggle of a game that actively defies your intentions. Thus you persist, grappling with the chaos, driven by the determination to maintain the unity and spirit of your organization amidst the turbulence.
I look at running events or running an organization as it is and it's a fun responsibility, but it's my responsibility to ensure that everybody that is there with me and giving me their time is having some kind of fun, and I'm not wasting their time, and I'm making sure that they made, in their minds, they can walk away and go, yeah, I had a good night tonight, I had fun, that was worth me logging into. I can't do that in Star Citizen anymore because the game, well, like you said, it won't work. And then after 3 or 4 times of that, and your guy starts showing up, people stop showing up. They stop showing up. They're like, why would I do this? Why would I subject myself to this? And it's a really crappy feeling. And then you're left. I think a lot of orgs are like this right now. I can't speak for any of them, but I think a lot of them are now in this holding pattern, waiting for something else to come out, not something of the game, but something in Star Citizen to come out to help alleviate this. Because trying to make this game work right now with a group is a Siphian task. It really is.
The cry for stability amidst the tumultuous waves of Star Citizen's development is a poignant one. The frustration over persistent instability, which has intensified since the era of 318, has indeed spiraled into a self-fulfilling cycle of discontent. The game, now under a brighter gaze, is plagued by the very issues that seem to resist resolution. The proposal to cease the introduction of new features and instead focus solely on mending the existing fractures resonates deeply. To halt the relentless march of new content and channel all efforts into stabilizing the present state may indeed offer a path to solace for many. Such a strategy aims to address the fundamental issues before expanding further into the unknown. Yet this path is fraught with its own complexities. The act of pausing development to focus exclusively on stabilization is not without its own perils. It risks stalling the momentum and vision that drives the grand design forward. Balancing the pursuit of innovation with the imperative of stability is a delicate art, and the decision must weigh the benefits of a refined present against the promise of a grand future. In the end, the choice reflects a deep yearning for a stable foundation upon which the future can be built. Whether this path will offer the respite and clarity sought, or whether it will merely delay the inevitable, remains a question for the stars to answer.
It's certainly interesting. It's not one that I have ever given a lot of thought to. Let's say we did that, though. Let's go down this road. Let's say hypothetically that's what happened and all new content development was stopped. And they came out with, let's say, server meshing, right? And server meshing worked. Well, then I would ask...
I am sorry, the connection here in Red Mountain sucks. What did you ask?
I'll start over again real quick. So let's say hypothetically that they did fix all that. And they had meshing, and they stopped development on new features. So the meshing's in the game, and things are relatively stable. My next question would be then, with the current set of features in the game, what would you actually do with a group?
Perchance you shall delve into the bowels of an asteroid, seeking ore for coin, or perhaps engage in the endless pursuit of PvE bounties. Let the riches of space flow into your coffers, as you amass septims through toil and conquest. In this endeavor, seek not merely the fleeting pleasures, but the enduring wealth that shall secure your place among the great and the powerful.
For what?
I possess not the answer to your query, Outlander. To halt the march of development, to cease the forging of what is yet to be, seems a course most unwise. For in the realm of creation, stagnation is the true enemy, and progress must ever press forward, unyielding and relentless. To stop is to falter, and such is not the path to greatness.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you on a spot, so please don't take it that way. But it's more of a question to kind of illustrate a point, right? That if you stop development and you fix everything, but there's still nothing to really do that has merit or value. Yes, you can make money, but you need something to do with the money. The money has to have value. So my point that I'm trying to make is there's really not much, and I'm very sorry for anybody listening. I still love the game, but there's not very much of a game underneath all of that. So if you were to stop doing development and then focus on what you have now, you really don't have a whole lot right now.
I find myself in accord with your sentiments. While the gameplay, in its essence, offers engagement and purpose, the core of your endeavors is the accumulation of wealth. The progression of reputation remains but a distant echo, and the grand visions of crafting, base building, and a vibrant economy are yet to be realized. The absence of unique characters to court for favor, or a system of item trading among players, reflects a stark void in the current design. To halt development and focus solely on stabilizing the present state may indeed craft a sandbox of fleeting enjoyment. Yet, in my estimation, such a course lacks the enduring substance required for true longevity. The foundation may be solidified, but without the deeper layers of content and interaction, it risks becoming a mere transient pleasure rather than a lasting realm of fulfillment. Do you believe that the current state of the sandbox holds sufficient promise for enduring engagement?
No, because there's not a lot of sand in that sandbox. So no, there would be no longevity. There's nothing for you to build. I mean, that is a figurative build, not like actually construction, but there's nothing for you to do in that sandbox. You can't build anything. There's nothing to do there. So no, stopping development would be a very bad idea.
As I said, they simply cannot halt their forward march. They are ensnared in a most arduous position, where the cessation of development is not an option.
Oh, it's no doubt very difficult, and I would never discredit or take away from the hard work that they do over there. Not at all. But as a player, looking at it from my point of view, do you think your average person that's coming into this game sees it the way I just saw it or the way you see it? They don't care. They have plenty of options of games to go play. But for those of us that are still here, when we are playing this game, we do want something more. And there has to be something else to it. And all of that development, all of that technology is supposed to come together and give us something. But you mentioned reputation. We don't have rep grinds. We don't have any type of rep. We don't have the basic foundations of what makes a game a quote-unquote MMO. Now, I know that MMO has lost its meaning in the last 5 or 8 years, probably longer. But in my mind, it doesn't have anything that makes this game like the greats, like Star Wars Galaxies, or partially a little bit like EVE Online. I never played EVE, but I'm not saying copy EVE, but like EVE Online or any of these other games that have MMO features or MMO rule sets and are made to be MMOs. Star Citizen doesn't have any of them. It doesn't even have the scale. What scale? It's a 100 player server. You can get that by playing Foxhole. I think Battlefield 2042 now has 128 man servers. I was playing on 128 man servers back in Tribes 1 in 1998, okay, back in the day. So it doesn't even have the scale. So where is the MMO part of Star Citizen? Because it ain't in the numbers and it's not in the features. So when does this game become an MMO?
We find ourselves inevitably drawn back to the matter of server meshing, the crux of so many hopes and frustrations. For at least 4 long years, if not more, this has been the most agonizing topic, a thorn in the side of progress, and yet the key to unlocking the vast potential that lies ahead. It is a subject that weighs heavily upon the minds of those who dream of a more stable and expansive future. Yet its resolution remains elusive, a beacon of promise still shrouded in uncertainty.
But that makes sense when I say I don't care about Pyro?
I see your reasoning. There are those who voice their discontent, proclaiming that even if they reach 1.0 and unveil 5 systems, it would not suffice. Yet I find myself in disagreement with such a notion. Perhaps this view may stir controversy, but if they were to achieve 1.0 with but a single system, and within that system could dwell 2,000, 4,000, or even 5,000 souls, I believe the foundation for an MMO would be strong enough. The vastness of the game's current expanse could indeed sustain a thriving community. However, the addition of multiple star systems introduces complexities, factions, reputations, and the like. But in my view, it is ultimately a matter of scale.
Bad opinion of yours to have. It's actually probably the correct one, is that if you had the proper infrastructure to support an MMO, not just technological, but also from mechanical gameplay wise, you could get a lot of mileage out of Stanton. Because at this point, we've gotten 0 MMO mileage out of Stanton. There's tons of things you could add, especially if they had the base building and the construction and reputations and factions and all that. You could do a lot. These planets are huge. Yeah. One of those planets, one of those moons is gigantic. You just have to give the players a reason to do things on Stanton, and it would be fine. So, but, the reason why I think that we're going to end up getting people really want Pyro, or they're probably going to do Pyro, and this is just my hunch, is Stanton's just going to be some PvE zone, quote unquote, so to speak, and they're just going to throw everybody in Pyro who wants to PvP and be done with it. I think that's why we're seeing such movement towards Pyro.
The choice of Stanton. A decision laden with purpose and foresight. Indeed, it is said, and rightly so, that Stanton represents a vertical slice of the grand vision, a microcosm of the greater cosmos, yet to be revealed. Unlike Terra, or perhaps Killian, Stanton is not destined to be a sanctuary of safety. No, it is a system ruled by the iron grip of corporations, indifferent to the plight of those beneath their gaze. Gangs linger on their very thresholds, a testament to the lawlessness that festers within. The perception of Stanton as a PvE haven is but a fleeting illusion, born from the stark contrast with Pyro, a place teeming with peril. Yet, as new systems emerge, Magnus, Terra, Castra, each with their own degree of safety, The true nature of Stanton will become apparent. In comparison, Stanton shall be revealed not as a bastion of peace, but as a realm fraught with danger, where the veneer of corporate order barely conceals the chaos lurking beneath. The excuse of Stanton's supposed safety will crumble, and its true character will stand exposed.
Well, it'll always have the danger, but unfortunately the danger is going to be limited to ganking. Anybody who's real about PvP and wants to fight is going to want the no strings attached PvP that Pyro is going to offer. So while Stanton is not going to become, on the tin that it says, okay, this is a still dangerous zone, it's not just a PvE zone, I can speak at least from my own point of view. I don't want to deal with satellites and turning them off. I don't want to deal with Klesher. I don't want to deal with stations with guns. I don't want to deal with any of that. So I'm just going to go fight people on Pyro. That's that's what I mean when I'm saying it's essentially going to be a PvP zone. Yes, you can go and fight people in Stanton. And maybe there'll be a reason to do it. Absolutely. Maybe an org would want to raid Stanton. I don't know. But I personally, with the current rule set, because I only know what we have, and what we're supposed to get soon, quote unquote, is I cannot see myself wanting to do any type of PvP combat in Stanton where my night's going to be ended by sitting in Klesher.
Indeed, mortal. The allure of wealth draws many to where the septims flow most freely. As fewer souls venture into Stanton to engage in conflict, the coffers of those who do shall swell with coin. Should the masses heed the call of safer or more lucrative realms, the brave few who remain in Stanton will find themselves rewarded handsomely for their audacity. Thus, if the economy responds as it should, the balance of risk and reward will guide the movements of the players, ensuring that the flow of wealth is dictated by the ebb and flow of danger and opportunity.
So let's assume the economy is working correctly. Absolutely. So I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was going to say. But let's assume that players will go where the money is within reason. You can throw some of the hottest items and resources somewhere, but if players are going to have a real chance of getting ganked or killed out there, not a lot of people are going to go out there. And in my experience, that ties into how difficult it is for a player to recover from death, or how quick it is for a player to get back to where they were or resume what they were doing after death. So that's another layer of problem that SC has, right? So let's say you put all the most expensive stuff in Pyro, and you jump into Pyro, and you forget to set your respawn point at a station over there. Where are you going to end up at? All the way back in Stanton? Yeah. Right? So then maybe that's the end of your PvP session for the night, because it's like a 30, 40-minute trip back.
That is why we have medical ships floating like beacons in the tumultuous void of Pyro. A rebirth upon such a vessel is not without its price, for to dwell in the heart of such danger demands a heavy toll. When the cost to rise again reaches 20,000 septims, those who command these ships shall amass fortunes beyond measure, for they brave the very maw of chaos, where few dare to linger. In Pyro, the allure of precious loot beckons the bold, where the risk is great, but the rewards are greater still. If the gears of the economy turn as they should, it shall drive even the solitary souls to seek out the lifeblood that fuels their existence. In this treacherous expanse, the wealth of Pyro will draw them forth, as they grasp at the riches that lie hidden in the shadows. Thus, the economy shall become the force that pushes them to carve out their destiny in the vastness of the void.
Yes, and I would like to see that. But then that brings me to the next one I mentioned about respawns and setting respawns. That element can be there. That layer of depth, like you mentioned, can be in the game 100%. But the barrier to access that content can't be too high. And I don't mean skill-wise high, okay? If let's say, let's use your example, the Endeavor you mentioned. So we go to Pyro, and I'm in Pyro, and there's somebody with an Endeavor. I should not have to land on his ship, go into his ship, walk through his ship, find a med bay.
Your thoughts resonate with truth. A system where death grants the choice of respawn locations. Such a mechanism would add layers of strategy and immersion. To pay a fee to resurrect upon a nearby planet, or in another favored location, would weave a richer tapestry of choice and consequence. Yet the path to such a design is fraught with complexity. The intricate dance of engineering and the grand designs they have spoken of for a decade reveal the deep trials that lie within. Such is the nature of their struggle. Turning grand visions into functional realities is a task not easily accomplished, and it is this very challenge that stirs discontent among those who yearn for the realization of these long-held promises.
You're preaching to the choir, man. I've been talking about respawns since last year. I am 100% on board with that. I would like more accessible respawn mechanics, and I think that is a big part. We're talking about player frustration and why people are so unhappy. Well, there's one right there, is respawn mechanics, or just spawn mechanics in general. You go out with your friend, let's say everything's going great, you're having no problems, and you're out there, and I don't know, he just dies to something, and you're a two-man crew. Well, you're over at Microtech, but his respawn point's over at Area 18. Why is it shoving him all the way back there? Why is it not giving him the option, like you said, and like I've been rallying on about for almost a year now? Why are you not giving that player the option to select the nearest respawn point, and to your point, for a fee? What's their harm in that? What is the harm in keeping players together and keeping them where they want to be? What's the harm?
The delicate balance of consequence and strategy. Indeed, there must be a midpoint, a place where the weight of planning is acknowledged. Imagine, if you will, a scenario where one engages in a fierce conflict at an outpost, 10 against 10, a clash of wills and might. The advantage seems secure, with half of the foes vanquished. Yet, should those fallen adversaries reappear without heed to the cost of their resurrection, the battle's weight seems unjustly diminished. To address this, there must be nuances in the design, where the choices of planning and positioning bear weight. If one fails to secure their respawn close to the fray, they should face the consequence of a more distant return. This, in turn, would lend gravity to the strategy, ensuring that all efforts and victories are not rendered moot by a mere lack of foresight. Thus, the trials of battle would be honored, and the art of war would be tempered by the realities of preparation and consequence.
Well, yeah, the solution to that is a nearest station. It's presenting players with, to get what you want, what you just said there, is an ideal respawn system that I would have that will never probably be in Star Citizen, I'm going to say it anyway, is if you die and you do not set up a spawn point at an Ursa or an Apollo like you mentioned earlier, but you don't set one up, okay? But you just happen to go out into a ground fight, you're not prepared, or maybe you logged in or you forgot, whatever it may be. You go out there, you fight, you die, you get an option to spawn at the nearest station. That station is still going to be far away. Say you're fighting on Hurston and you die, and it's going to shove you over to Everest Harbor, depending on your crime stat, right? It might just send you back to Grimhex. But if you die and you get sent to Everest Harbor, that's still 5 minutes away, practically. If you have to get up, get your ship, you have to claim your ship. That's the other thing, too. Your ship's not already there, so you got to claim something. You're looking at least 5 minutes. That's a pretty long respawn timer, but it's a heck of a lot better than respawning 20 or 30 minutes away.
The ceaseless dance of balance, where time itself becomes a foe or a friend. The essence of frustration in 324, entwined with the physicalization of cargo and inventory, reveals a profound rift in the realm of Star Citizen. The matter of time sinks, how they are wielded and the toll they exact, becomes a focal point of discourse. The intricacies of physicalized cargo and inventory present both opportunity and challenge. On one hand, they embody the promise of immersion and realism, drawing one deeper into the fabric of the game. On the other, they can impose burdensome delays, stretching the limits of patience. The struggle lies in balancing consequence with engagement. A well-crafted time sink should serve as a test of strategy and foresight, without extinguishing the spirit of play. It must add weight and significance to decisions, yet not undermine the joy of exploration and combat. In the realm of 3.24, where cargo is no longer merely an abstract concept, but a tangible entity, the discussion swirls with both anticipation and trepidation. The challenge is to ensure that the physicalization of these elements enhances the experience, rather than becomes an impediment. Thus, the path forward must navigate these turbulent waters, seeking harmony between realism and enjoyment, so that the grand vision of Star Citizen may be realized without diminishing the fervor of its champions.
Well, as a pirate player, I've been hand-loading cargo for a pretty long time, so that part I'm used to. However, I think that everything people are voicing their concern about is correct. There's a happy medium. Again, it's going to be it's like that in life. It's an ideal, right? There's a happy medium. There is a good amount of time that you can spend doing something that makes what you're doing fun and rewarding, and then there's an excessive amount of time to where you're wasting it. With the new system and the cargo system, what is the wait time? Do you know on average if you do the auto load?
Alas, the depths of my knowledge do not extend to that particular truth. I am unacquainted with it, yes. Such is the limit of my insight in this matter.
I think I read it was like 10 or so minutes. Now, don't quote me on this, anybody listening, but let's just say it's even 5 if you're doing the auto load. That's a long time to load. That's not too terribly bad. I can kind of live with that. But when you're starting to get to like the 10 or 15 minute mark, which is what I was reading on Spectrum the other day, don't know if it's true, totally unacceptable. And that's just to start playing the game.
Pray tell, how many boxes does this entail? The count of such containers will reveal much of the burden and the task at hand.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just using a ballpark. I don't know how many boxes that is. But if it's, are we going to then, or are we going to incentivize people not to use the big cargo transports? That maybe that's a design part. I'm against it. I think it's important to a degree. All right. It's important to a degree because you have to give people something to plan for, like you said, because time does add validity. But what's the cutoff here? What are you personally willing to accept?
Recently, I found myself burdened with the task of offloading 11 boxes from my ship. Upon the deck of my Crusader C1, where the cargo bays are conveniently positioned, it took me but 4 minutes to complete the task alone. This efficiency, though, may not translate to the auto-loading process, where a modest addition, say 10%, might be warranted to reflect the time required by average players for such a quantity from this vessel. Compare this to the laborious endeavor of unloading from a raft, devoid of any proper cargo deck, or a hull B, where the goods are precariously stacked at the ship's edge. The disparity between these scenarios demands a nuanced approach to the auto-loading system. This mechanism, though integral, may circumvent the manual handling that lies at the heart of cargo operations, a crucial aspect for those engaged in logistics and cargo hauling. To truly balance this, the process of auto-loading should incorporate an appropriate time delay, unless one opts to employ additional NPCs. Indeed, a concept previously unveiled depicted an interface allowing one to augment the number of NPCs assisting with cargo, though this would naturally entail an additional cost. The interplay between efficiency and expense must be meticulously balanced. For vast undertakings, such as offloading a hull D with its myriad SCU, it is inconceivable that auto-loading could be completed in a mere 20 minutes. Even with the aid of players, the endeavor would demand far more time and effort. Thus, the balance between manual and automated processes remains a delicate and crucial matter.
That's your gameplay loop right there, right? So no, I agree. I want to give the full disclosure. I'm not a cargo person, but if I may, and if anybody here listening has ever played Foxhole, that was a game that had logistics. That would take a long time, but the key is that it was fun. It was fun. There was something fun about the way Foxhole did it. If Star Citizen, and it's going to sound silly, right? But if it could make moving and stacking boxes fun, then the time doesn't matter too much now, does it?
Indeed, if the essence of enjoyment were present, none would find cause for concern. For when the thrill of engagement pervades, all else fades into insignificance. The measure of satisfaction lies in the joy of the journey, not in the troubles that may arise.
Riding a train's not fun, right? You might go and do a mission, a PvP mission or a dogfight or even PvE where you're shooting things pew, pew, pew. You might do that for 30 or 40 minutes. That's 30 or 40 minutes, but you're having fun. So I guess the key here would be is how do we make the cargo loading fun? Because if that's what you're here for, then you have to make it a fun experience that those people who are here for are going to enjoy. Then the time doesn't matter as much, right? Am I off kilter here with that?
No. I perceive your truth with clarity. It is not the mere possibility of manual cargo handling that warrants debate, but rather what CIG may conjure to infuse this task with intrigue and engagement. The discourse should center on how to render the act of loading and unloading cargo a compelling experience. How might they fashion diverse cargo types that demand varied arrangements? How could they transform the act of transferring goods onto a trolley for a companion into a delightful interaction rather than dismissing it as an unwelcome facet of the game? The focus should be on enriching the process itself, not merely questioning its existence.
Yeah, it should definitely be in a game. I'm very pro physicalized cargo in that respect. And perhaps I should clarify, when I talk about time wasters, and this does swing back to the cargo here, but I'm very anti excessive train rides. I'm the kind of guy where if I'm going to have my personal hangar, I want to be able to respawn inside my hangar, and I want to be able to have a terminal in my hangar to be shop for everything on that station in my hangar. That's the kind of person I am. I know that doesn't sit well with everybody, but I want to be very transparent about the mindset that I have, and I'm willing to budge on a lot of things. But that's where I'm looking at things from. I don't mind the act of loading the ship up with my equipment, and I don't mind the act of preparing my equipment. I mind the act of getting to the place where I have to be to begin the preparation process in the first place.
Indeed, I am in complete accord. The thought of enabling players to spawn in their personal hangars, given the nature of instancing and such, is a vision that aligns with progress. The nascent stage of base building should indeed commence with the ability to place small cots or beds, allowing one to manifest their presence wherever they choose. While the fate of spawn mechanics remains uncertain, the principle stands resolute. Players ought to possess the freedom to dictate their own locations, liberating them from unnecessary constraints. The expectation must evolve towards a future where the mundane journey of trains becomes obsolete, and one need not tether themselves to a city unless they so desire.
Well, yeah, and this is the question I always ask people, right? You mentioned the city. The first thing everybody does or are told to do, even a tutorial tells you to do this, is get the heck off the city and up to a station. And then the next question I would ask any player, it's kind of a trick question, but it kind of illustrates a point. What is the purpose of a station and star station? What are you there at the station to do? What do you want to do at a station? You want to get off of it. You want to get out of it. Because there's nothing to do with the station.
At present, the cities hold no intrinsic worth beyond their superficial allure. I, too, counsel others to forsake the confines of the city, urging them to establish their spawn elsewhere and disregard the city's transient presence. Yet, in truth, there should indeed be missions entwined with the city's very essence. Imagine tasks that demand one to transport goods from the heart of the city to the spaceport, or from the spaceport to some distant edifice perched atop a city rooftop. Such endeavors would breathe purpose into the urban expanse, giving the cities meaningful utility and integration in the grand scheme of the game.
Yeah, why is Michael, or what's his name, Michael Eckhart, whatever his name is, why is he the exception and not the rule?
Indeed, the thrill of mission givers was once a grand design, heralded with great fanfare when 3.0 emerged from the depths. The idea was to traverse to a figure of importance, or receive a summons from them, and thus delve into their intricate web of tasks. Tessa Bannister, a beloved figure from the pre-3.0 era, exemplified this with her array of missions, ventures into derelict ships to unearth black boxes and recordings, all voiced with a touch of artistry. It was a spectacle, well crafted and immersive. Yet, the stability of the realm was unkind to such ventures. The mission givers faltered under the weight of a game still in flux, and the labor to sustain such content was deemed too great amidst the need to populate an entire star system. Thus, they receded from the forefront, awaiting a time when the stability of the realm would permit their grand return. Now, whispers of their resurgence echo through the monthly reports and Star Citizen's chronicles. The likes of Miles may herald a return, but the mission giver's full return shall await a time when the game's foundation is more secure.
I gotcha. And that makes sense from a development point of view because you want to have scalability, and that's, and I totally get that. But then that would bring me to the next thing is, when I play this game, I would rather not be going through these, the mission contracts and doing things. I'd like to do things organically. That's more how I like to play games. I don't like to get quests or missions. I like to set my own missions up and have a reason to do it. And then when I go out and do it, I have something to maybe bring back or do. And that's that's why I'm excited for at least the contested stations. It might be something like that. Or, if this game had an economy, right? Maybe you want to go to those black box missions, like you said, and you go ahead and you track down these black boxes. It's a totally organic thing that you do on your own without an NPC or a contract telling you to go there, and you get more people in the world doing things organically, which is what a sandbox is. We got a game that's trying to be a sandbox, but is theme park on rails at the same time? I don't get it.
They seek to grapple with both forms of content, striving to entwine the grand sandbox with the intricate dance of simulation. Yet the chasm of the absent simulation, be it quantum, Starsin, or what have you, remains vast and unbridged. Imagine, if you will, the thrill of the hunt. A lone pirate in Stanton, gliding through the void, eyes set upon a distant caterpillar, piloted by unseen NPCs. The temptation to unleash an EMP, to seize the cargo within, would be a venture most exhilarating. Such encounters would not merely enrich the experience of the pirate, but also weave a tapestry of emergent gameplay. An NPC, stranded and distressed, could summon a bounty hunter to their aid, sparking a confrontation that may transform a mere hunter into a pirate, reveling in newfound spoils. The sandbox gameplay, rich and promising, is thus shackled by the current lack of supporting mechanisms. There is nothing to support it.
No, there's not. And that's the vision I had when I started playing this game, as I thought that's how things were. And then when I got to the reality of the contract manager, I was like, okay. And then, the novelty wore off kind of quick. And that's why I jumped into PvP right away. Because I personally, I respect you if you guys can do it. I personally couldn't do it. I couldn't do the same bunkers over and over again. I couldn't do the same things over and over again. I had to have something more dynamic, something more interesting to do with my time.
Indeed, the lament of time's passage and the irony that after a decade or more of labor, they find themselves at the threshold of truly crafting the game. The focus thus far on the engine, server meshing, physicalization, and the object logging system has been both crucial and yet seemingly unyielding in its immediate impact. These elements have been woven into the tapestry of the game, yet their grand promise has not yet borne the fruit of profound change. As they now turn their gaze towards the construction of libraries and the nascent phases of 1.0, base building, crafting, and the grand simulation of stars, there emerges a glimmer of hope. This new focus heralds the potential for emergent gameplay, where the systems and structures you envision may come to life, infusing the game with reason and purpose. Thus, the anticipation grows, for it is within these forthcoming elements that we may yet witness the true evolution of the experience.
I've got to see it.
Indeed, the discontent echoes through the hearts of many, like a distant drumbeat, signaling the approach of some unseen doom. The passage of time has only deepened this malaise, for what was once heralded with great fanfare at CitizenCon has faded into an elusive mirage. Those vibrant discussions, those stirring promises, how brightly they shone, yet how little they have manifested into the reality we were led to expect. 9 long months have passed, and with each day, the chasm between expectation and reality widens, feeding the frustration that now festers among those who once believed.
Yeah, I launched when we started. This patch came out. We had 100. We had about 185 people actively playing. 185 people actively playing. We had a very impromptu organization meeting where over 80 guys showed up, and in a couple months, I now play with like a handful of people. You know, where do y'all go? I look at the numbers right there. I got my own metrics to look at, and they're on my Discord, and they all say the same thing. Oh, it's boring. There's nothing to do. And they're right. They're right. And that's assuming they're not complaining about bugs.
But ponder this. When the game, in its grand tapestry, finally weaves together the threads of purpose and engagement, shall the disillusioned return to its fold? Or do you foresee them drifting away, forever lost to the void? Will they come back when the promises are fulfilled? Or has their departure been sealed in the annals of fate?
No, they're totally come back. They're going to always come back. Everybody comes back to Star Citizen. There's nothing like it.
I perceive their gambit. They are wagering upon the notion that patience shall bear fruit. Their strategy seems clear: to deliberate upon the art of server meshing with careful precision, whilst introducing features to those who dwell within the current iteration of the game. They delight in the temporary allure of these additions, yet they anticipate that those who linger in anticipation shall return when the grand design is realized. Their paramount struggle lies in amassing sufficient funds to sustain the creation's evolution until that fateful day arrives. It is evident they place great hope upon Squadron 42, a vessel to ferry forth a tide of coin, fortifying their efforts until the game achieves its destined grandeur.
I would agree with that. I know that they can't obviously say, hey guys, take a break until 4.0 comes out, because then people might stop buying stuff and funding the project, like you said. But I think you're probably correct. I gotta be honest with you guys. I don't really care when 4.0 comes out. I've waited this long. I could wait longer. I would rather it not come out this year, and that might suck to say, but I would rather it not come out this year and then come out early next year and actually be pretty good and functioning and working. There's plenty of good games to play this year, and I'll always be following. I'll still log into SC anyway, but I have no problem waiting if it's going to come out and it's going to actually function and not be like 3.23 was, which was very, very poorly received for good reason.
You ponder the fate of the ancient backers, those who first pledged their faith to this grand endeavor. Do they yet tread within the realms they once sought to shape? And if they do, are their voices of consequence? In truth, the value of the OG backers lies not merely in their numbers, but in their enduring presence. Though you may view them with disdain, their commitment forms a cornerstone upon which the edifice of this venture is built. They are the ones who bore witness to the earliest days, who staked their claims upon the dreams now unfolding. Whether their opinions hold weight or not, they remain part of the foundation, their contributions etched into the annals of this undertaking.
I think that the amount of people who backed the project on the OG Kickstarter days, who are still actively playing the game right now, are probably an extreme minority. And I feel that players that are coming into the product now, which is, you might know this better than I do, but is the new players the majority of the new revenue coming in? You happen to know?
Indeed, the tide of backers swells ever greater, a surge of new souls joining the ranks from the year 2020 and beyond. Their numbers surpass those of the past, a testament to the enduring allure of this grand venture. The landscape is transformed, with each new pledge adding to the tapestry of support and ambition, reshaping the very foundation upon which the future is built.
Okay, so now you have people coming into the game now, let's say 2020. So OG backing 2010, 2012, whatever it may be, 2012. So the 2020 backers are from a different era of gaming. They have different expectations than what people would have tolerated 10 or 12 years ago. So I think the disconnect and the unhappiness comes from both camps. The people who were here originally are probably not going to get what they were promised. That's just the reality of it. They're in the exact written form. They're not going to get what they were promised. And the people that are coming into the game now are not going to accept a lot of the things that are in this game, the instability, the time wasters, going back to the time, screw the instability, but time wasters and the time things and things like that. So that I don't think either one's going to be happy. But I do think that the new backers are going to be the ones that will probably end up getting a more enjoyable experience than the older backers who do not want to, for lack of better words, just adapt with the way the game is and the market is.
Behold, let us consider the matter of engineering as a prime example. Shall this intricate art serve to complicate the grandeur of larger vessels? And is it not a restriction long heralded for those who seek to wield might through the mere acquisition of grand ships? This ensures that those who command such behemoths must either render payment or enlist the aid of allies or NPCs to navigate the vast machinery. I perceive a divergence in perception between the ancient backers, who understood this complexity from the outset, and the newly initiated, who question its necessity. Dost thou believe that CIG and Star Citizen remain bound by their ancient promises to fulfill this vision? Or should they heed the desires of the new arrivals, who yearn for simplicity over such entanglements?
Well, now we're getting into a product integrity. That bigger ships being crewed by multiple players is essential for bigger ships. That's not a time waster. And I guess some people, because now we're getting into the definitions, it's a very subjective what makes something more complicated versus not. I think having an engineer and having somebody in enforcing multi-crew ships to be actually multi-crew is a very crucial part of design. But the problem is that the ships do not reward the players for being multi-crewed right now.
A most crucial consideration. Many perceive the elements currently bestowed upon the game as if it were a completed entity, rather than contemplating how these facets might be utilized to their fullest potential in the future. The true essence of the game lies not in its present form, but in its grander vision and the potential it holds to evolve and harness these elements in times to come.
You could have said that same thing 10 years ago.
True, those who ventured into the game a dozen or more years past understood that what they beheld was but a fragment of the grand design. Yet many who now traverse the realms of Star Citizen are unaware that it remains a work in progress. They gaze upon the instability and lament, questioning why such a state was revealed unto them. Such ignorance of the ongoing nature of development blinds them to the greater journey that lies ahead.
So let's ignore all the stability from this topic, but let's say this then. I would ask if a game that is not finished but has been in development for 10 to 12, was it 10 years? Let's just say 10 years, has been in development for 10 years. Okay, let's just say that. Still doesn't have the core concept of a rewarding and functioning multi-crew experience. When there have been other ones that have come out since, and I don't want to compare these other games, but what I'm saying is the core methodology behind the multi-crew is not there. And because it's not there, the waters get muddied with people complaining, well, I don't want to have an engineer in my ship. That's just not fair. The ship sucks. Why do I need an engineer? Why you don't want one? Because the ship sucks. Because the experience sucks with multi-crew.
I concur with your sentiment. The protracted span of development hath cast many into a realm of uncertainty, leaving them unaware of the game's true nature. I shall not claim to possess the knowledge of its ultimate form, for the path to 1.0 remains obscured. Yet it is clear that the necessity of an engineer aboard my hammerhead was no unexpected degradation, but a feature foreseen from the beginning. Such understanding illuminates the impact of these changes upon our perception.
I don't view those things as a nerf, and I don't view those as overt complication. Perhaps maybe we're not on the same wavelength, or there's a bit of a misunderstanding. Because you mentioned master modes and simplification, and then you mentioned engineering, for example, or multi-crew. I don't think that multi-crew is making something more complicated. It's an essential component to the concept of multi-crew. It's about how you do it. So here's a better way to put it. So you could have engineering. All right. Okay, cool. If somebody wants to be an engineer, there are tons of people who love to play support roles in video games. Tons of them. All right. Now they're an engineer role, arguably a support role. They have something very important to do. Star Citizen can screw it up like they screw everything else up. And you might say, well, this is now too complicated. It's to make it obtuse and unintuitive and needlessly complicated for the sake of being complicated. So if you get the engineering terminal and you do something there that almost anybody can understand, that's fine. However, if you have to do some esoteric nonsense just to make the shields go up, for example, some silly example here, then we're getting into a problem. That's not adding depth and skill, it's adding busy work. You don't want to make something essential too terribly complicated, but you don't want to make it stupid either. And that's not what I'm saying. But you mentioned master modes, and I'm going to mention it. The thing about master modes, I'm going to go ahead and say it because I don't care. The idea here was speed was the issue. And now people keep saying, oh, it's to make it easier, because it was filled with, I'm going to say it again, esoteric mechanics that your average player would not understand. If a player has to go and watch a YouTube video, and this would apply to engineering too, by the way, if he has to go watch a YouTube video from some idiot like me on how to do something, there's a problem with your game. If a new player has to go and watch a 40-minute long dissertation on how to fly, there's a problem with your game. These do not make MMOs. These make sims. You cannot have a sim, and then this is another word that's going to mean something different to different people. You cannot have a sim and also have a good MMO. Some people would tell you that Star Wars Galaxies was a sim. Others would tell you that DCS is a sim. Well, I think DCS is a sim, and I don't think SWG is, but some people would tell you that it was.
What do you consider to be the essence of the simulation in this context? What are the parameters and the intricacies that shape its definition? Illuminate the facets that constitute the heart of this simulated realm, and reveal what gives it form and substance in new eyes.
I would say that what's defining the sim in this game is the immersiveness of the game, is the immersion of the game. For example, going and picking up a box and physically putting it down. That, to me, makes it a sim. We're getting into the System Shock, or if you're younger, perhaps the BioShock realm of immersive sim gameplay. You have to interact with a terminal. You have to interact with a bunch of stuff. Your character is doing it. That's the immersive sim part. Star Citizen has that in spades. Does it also have to be DCS in space? I don't think so, because the game has to be an MMO. And what makes a game a complicated space sim or flight sim does not make for a good MMO. So what does this game want to be? Is it going to be an MMO or a space sim? It can't be either or. And I mean space sim in the sense of an actual space sim, because there are some people out there that are pushing for Kerbal Space Program like stuff.
Such folly to suggest that quantum travel should adhere to orbital mechanics. The sheer complexity of that notion is staggering. I believe in the virtue of game loops being accessible to the common player. Yet to master them, one must delve deeper. To become the finest long-distance scanner, capable of discerning the essence of any object with unmatched speed, one must invest time and effort. Mastery in such a craft should require more than just the rudiments provided by the in-game tutorial. It demands a profound understanding of scanning signatures and the intricacies of each system's hidden secrets.
And I would agree with that. And that is fine for whenever you are discussing a non-competitive element to a game. You're describing easy to learn, difficult to master. Big time fan of it. Totally support it. Been saying it for years. Whenever you have a PvP component to a game, however, if there is too steep of a curve, people are not going to stick around and get their teeth kicked in. They're going to leave, and they're not going to pick it up again. The only proof I need of that is Arena Commander before versus Arena Commander Master Modes. If anybody here did Arena Commander before Master Modes, it was like the same 50, 60 people, maybe 100 if I'm going to be generous people before. After Master Modes came out, it got upgraded from the same 100 people to about the same 250 people. But hey, it was still an increase. People were doing it. People were trying and people were learning. That wasn't the possibility before. Yeah, if I'm going to sit down and learn how to scan asteroids and be the best damn asteroid scanner out there, sure, great, man. I'll put 40, 50 hours into that and do it. But an asteroid's not going to shoot me down and call me bad. To say, hey, man, put your lumps in and learn how to get good. And I support getting good. All right. Do not misunderstand me. However, saying to some guy, some noob, hey, go get good. But getting good involves you getting farmed 4 hours a day for 4 months. Dude, I think we all got something. Who's going to stick around and do that? And that was the problem with the old system.
Indeed, there is the common refrain that one must improve or simply cease to be affected by the loss, for such is the nature of the world. Yet we are engaged in a game, and it must remain inviting to all, even those who face defeat. Chris Roberts once spoke on this, contrasting players with AI. In competitive scenarios, when two players clash, one must lose, whereas an AI can endure defeat without consequence. Until the day when artificial beings develop their own grievances and rise against us. Interactions with machines offer a means for players to lose without disgrace.
Well, yeah, I mean, before the AI does what you mentioned. However, I would say then the flip to this, and I have said this now since over 20 years, Planetside 1, one of the only games to have done this. But the key here, the secret is to make losing fun. And at the very least, make losing tolerable. And that is a very difficult thing to do in a game. And people say, well, that's not possible. It is absolutely possible. You can make losing fun, or at the very least, make it tolerable. If you can do that in your game, then PvP is going to thrive. And games have done it. For Star Citizen, the way it's currently set up, it's not possible because losing sucks. You lose too much. You lose and I'm not even talking about the gear. I could lose. I don't care about my gear. I care so much more about the time I lose getting back to doing what I was doing. But you can still make losing fun. People go in AC all the time and they get killed, but they keep going back and doing it because at least some component of it must be fun.
Indeed, it is a fair point. It harkens back to the evolution of gaming culture and the shifting expectations over time. In the early days of this game's inception, players had different notions of how much time they would invest, or how they sought to escape the mundane world. From your view, it seems that the game's development should adapt to the current cultural landscape, rather than clinging to the original design documents crafted in days of old.
I believe the word I would use would be adapt, not so much change. And there is a difference. It might sound like a technicality, but there is a difference. We all have to adapt. We adapt every single day as humans, and the products and the things that we create must also adapt to as well. And I think that this game can certainly adapt to the modern standard of gaming without sacrificing its core and without sacrificing the integrity of the product. And I fully believe that. I don't see why a game which can make this massive, beautiful universe with these planets and things that no other game has can adapt to modern gaming and make it just a little bit less tedious.
It is indeed a matter of great interest to witness how they will evolve elements such as death of a spaceman. We have already observed some adaptation in areas like respawns and bed logging, once considered the very core of what this game was meant to be. Personally, I am not deeply versed in the minutiae of the game, yet I hold great affection for it, and admire the vision they have pursued. I welcome changes as long as they adhere to the principles of consequence, planning, and providing compelling reasons for choosing particular ships. The investment in diverse spacecraft must be met with thoughtful decision-making in their use. Thus, I am open to adaptation, provided these fundamental pillars remain steadfast.
Choice and consequence is a core element of design. It's what makes a game fun. You make a choice and you live with the consequences of that choice. If you don't believe me, try playing any of your favorite single-player games without save scumming. I guarantee you that you're going to play it a lot different and it's going to be a lot more fun. Now, that ain't for everybody. You can still have choice and consequence in an MMO. You set it with your ship and your ship fit and what you do. And you can get that choice and consequence from having factions and reputation and ship choice and everything else. You don't have to punish the player. That's where the consequence stops being fun. Then it becomes a real life consequence, and usually in real life consequences suck. So when it comes to the death of a spaceman, I am one of those people where I would say it is a very obtuse and open for interpretation buzz phrase that could mean anything, right? Because now technically you got death of a spaceman because you're full loot and your gear's gone. Is that not enough? Okay, well, we're getting stats coming in. Maybe we lose some stats if we keep dying. That's fine. I am fine with losing things so long as I do not have to remake my character or my character quote-unquote permadies. And even if permadying was something as simple as just remaking a copy-paste of a character, there's two reasons why that's stupid. Number one is if you're just creating Buzzcutpsycho 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 from a preset, why even have the character permadeath anyway? And two, there's a psychological element. Even if the permadeath is of no mechanical significance, players are going to be off-put. And if something is too risky and players are too offset to become, they're too risk adverse, then interesting gameplay will not happen.
Let us now delve into the matter of contested zones and PvP, a topic I wish to address before our discourse concludes. The allure of this game has long rested upon the notion that players are safeguarded not by artificial means, but through the very systems of the game. Yet, of late, there has been considerable resistance. From the latest observations in my recent video and over the years, a growing sentiment emerges that Star Citizen may be leaning too heavily towards PvP. The concept of dismantling Armistice zones, replacing them with formidable shield walls or powerful turrets, grants players choice, but also imposes significant consequences for misusing it. This has stirred unease among the players. Do you believe that the elimination of Armistice zones would indeed render the game more inclined towards PvP, and thus shift the experience in that direction?
Well, currently all Armistice zones do is not allow me to defend myself from somebody trying to board my ship. So I am inherently against Armistice zones based on that alone. Have you ever tried to load barrel or any mining material or resource on a planet, and somebody's sitting at a mining facility and he boards your ship? There's nothing you can do about it. Because the moment you get into the ship to fly away, he's going to pop you in the back of the head because you can't hurt him in Armistice. So yes, I'm very much against Armistice, but maybe for different reasons. I think you can accomplish the same result with more immersive sim, quote unquote, like features without having something that is so gamified, like a magic bubble that says you just can't shoot your guns here.
Indeed. What do you consider a fitting approach for them to achieve such an end?
Turrets to just frag you. That's the easiest one, right? You have guys who violate Armistice, they shoot somebody, they get killed by the turret. And that's even then too, because it's also not going to stop me, because if I really want to kill somebody, I'm just going to suicide into the medical room and shoot him with a shotgun. The turret's going to probably kill me, but I'm going to kill him too. So is it really working?
Indeed, indeed. And thus, matters like reputation shall come into play. Thou hast committed a crime and met thy end, thus thou art cast far away, while those who struck thee down might have been denied reprisal, allowing them to respawn near their previous location with all their possessions intact. Verily, there appear to be many subtle intricacies and potential measures that could be employed to refine this system, though I am uncertain of the specifics.
I want the freedom to do it only because there are certain people who I just can't stand that I would take the rep hit for. Just from my own biased point of view, that is why I would want it. But the Armistice system, the reason why I'm against it is what I mentioned before. It's unsightly. It doesn't seem to do much. I would rather have the penalty of the death of the player or the victim be less, and the perpetrator who did something in Armistice, quote unquote, probably suffer a lot more for it. So yes, you can do that, and you can take that hit on your account or your character or whatever it may be, but you better make sure it's worth it.
People shall indeed raise concerns about creating separate accounts to circumvent such measures. There are many edge cases to consider. Yet I foresee much discourse regarding Armistice zones when clarity is brought to their future. I am convinced they shall be removed, though the matter is not yet openly declared.
I'll tell you what my personal feeling here, I just kind of told you, I'll tell you what it is again. I think that they are absolutely necessary because players will stop at nothing to do what they want to do to circumvent a system that can be circumvented. So I think they should stay, but I personally don't like them, wish they would go away. Does that make sense?
Do you believe these zones should remain in the game permanently?
For the health of the product, yes. Yes, and because they're only going to be circumvented anyway.
Indeed.
Because that's the thing. If the goal here, I guess we have to say, what is the goal of the Armistice Zone? What's the goal of it?
I believe it's to prevent players from meeting their end in places where they would not expect such a fate.
Okay. And if we get rid of that and we say, okay, well, you can still be killed here, but that guy's going to suffer a lot. Now, again, like I said, do you think the guy who's going to suffer really going to care? He's going to be laughing. It's going to be funny. He's going to be talking it up in chat. And that other dude is dead. Oh, the guy's like, oh, well, you're respawning, 10 galactic space years away. It's like, yeah, but I still fragged you in a med bed. And it was funny. I mean, who really won there? I think the guy who got the kill won. It doesn't matter what the punishment is. He upset that guy. He griefed him. He trolled him, whatever word you want to use, and he got his way.
But how much has he taken?
It doesn't matter, man. If I hate somebody, I will take a 3-day suspension to get him.
If he respawns upon the very spot from whence he fell, what weight does it bear upon him that you struck him down and sent him away? The act of vanquishing, it seems, holds little consequence if the cycle of return remains unbroken, and the realm itself remains unchanged by the fleeting clash.
Now, when my friend does it, he'll probably care again. And my other friend, we talked about orgs. How big do you think these orgs are going to be? You get put on some orgs, kill on sight list. Well, it means kill on sight. How about we start cycling the guys with the shotguns doing the suicide runs into the med bed?
Perhaps they could use organization reputation so that your org cannot enter certain areas. All members would then be automatically marked as enemies by the security systems.
Sure, and that's a lot of systems we're putting onto it just to try and circumvent normal human player behavior in a game. This is all stuff I've done in other games, guys, I'm telling you. This is why I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Indeed. I can see the challenges there. But my concern is that artificial no-shoot zones might face issues similar to those seen with tractor beams. Questions arise about who can use a tractor beam and where, which limits certain gameplay aspects. One idea I particularly liked was that a bounty hunter might gain the reputation to use their weapon freely in a city, while others would be restricted. If a bounty hunter pulls out a gun, they're clear. If others do, security responds. It may be risky, but I hope they consider trying such systems.
No, I like that. I think that's actually pretty good. There's a lot of brainstorm ideas, that we could come up with for these types of systems. But it's, you've got my point of view. I'm with you. I want it gone, but I'm telling you what's going to happen when it's gone.
Do you perceive this game as gravitating towards a realm where PvP reigns supreme, a paradise of ceaseless conflict and combat? Or do you believe this is but the current trajectory of development, a fleeting phase in the grand design yet to be fully realized? Consider whether the essence of the game's future lies in the embrace of perpetual strife, or if it is merely a chapter in the evolving saga, awaiting further chapters yet to unfold.
I think that PvP is a very simple mechanic to put into a game that gets the most yield for the least amount of work. That's what I think. So you're seeing PvP as low-hanging fruit. I also think that PvP in the industry right now is far more popular than people like to give it credit for. People will always point to MMORPG titles that are primarily PvE-based as their metric, but then one simply needs to go to Steam to see the massive amount of players that are playing competitive quote-unquote PvP games, or even the ones that are not on Steam, like League and Valorant. These games are very popular, and there's a lot of players who want to do that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of retention in PvP.
Those are like arena-style shooters, right? Where you die and you respawn in the same spot, and you go at it again, as opposed to an open-world game where you, like we've been saying this whole time, you got time sinks to go through.
Okay, well, Rust is pretty popular, so is Ark. So Sea of Thieves. I would say Star Citizen's a session shooter too. This game, there's nothing about it. Going back to the very start of the conversation, there's nothing in this game that makes it MMO. It's a 100-man session server.
You speak of the distant future, of visions unfulfilled and yet tantalizingly close. Yes, you are correct. Even now, in the shadowed recesses of my mind, I ponder not what the game is, but what it shall become in 5 years hence. For it is inevitable that it will persist, like the rising of the sun or the inevitable tide. But when the time comes, when this digital realm truly ascends to its destined form as an MMO, what will be the true nature of the desires of its denizens? Will they yearn for the clash of steel and the roar of battle to turn it into an arena shooter? Perhaps, and in their lust for combat, they shall retreat to Arena Commander to bask in the simulated wars within their ships, playing the game within the game, a dream within a dream. But when the grand tapestry of the game unfolds, with no safe harbors, no armistice zones to shelter the fearful, and death ever lurking around the corner, protected only by the illusory guardians of gamified security, will they still crave such a world? Will they embrace the danger, the thrill of life hanging by a thread, or will they falter and turn away? Such are the questions that plague the minds of those who dare to dream of the future.
I think people are going to be into everything in this game, and it's essential to have, I said this earlier in the conversation, it's essential to have both of them. And it's essential to have them both in the game, so because not every PvP player just wants to PvP all the time. In a lot of MMORPGs I play, I will do PvP maybe 8 out of 10 of the things I'm doing, and then I'll go like fish or farm or harvest or do something else. I don't always want to be running at a 10 out of a 10. And so no, you can't just have all PvP. You have to have PvE or quote unquote life skills in your game as well, in my opinion.
Indeed, such a dilemma weighs heavily upon the soul. To navigate a world where trust is as fleeting as a breath of wind, where reputations are stained by the deeds of those who revel in darkness, this is no easy task. For when a player bears the mark of infamy, when their name is whispered with caution, it becomes a burden that cannot easily be shed. To expect others to cast aside their fears, to ask them not to strike down such a figure on sight, this demands a great deal of faith, a trust that is rare and precious in a realm where treachery lurks in every shadow. How can one believe in the goodwill of those who have danced with deceit? How can the wary lower their guard, knowing full well the reputation that precedes such players? This, my friend, is the crux of the matter. Trust must be earned, not merely requested, in a world where the consequences of betrayal are all too real.
Let's talk about the contested thing, because I know you wanted to wrap it up. I want to really talk about the contested thing. What do you think about it?
The vision you conjure is one of immense intricacy and ambition, a tapestry of conflict and reward interwoven into the very fabric of existence. Indeed, the concept itself brims with promise, a universe where contested zones are not merely isolated arenas, detached from the grand design, but are instead intrinsic to the very essence of the cosmos. These spaces, teeming with life and peril, where NPCs tread and treasures lie hidden, should not be regarded as mere battlegrounds, but as vibrant, living parts of the universe. Space stations you speak of are these confined fortresses where the boundless void gives way to corridors of metal and steel, where the vastness of space retreats, and the battle is brought to the ground. Here the complexity of combat is refined, stripped of spatial enormity, leaving only the struggle between player and NPC, foot against foot, will against will. Indeed, these contested zones should not be an afterthought, but a persistent challenge, woven seamlessly into the game's very fabric. And yet, we must address the Armistice zones, those sanctuaries where the very essence of danger is diluted. Pyro, a wild frontier, yet restrained by these artificial borders. Ah, how it distorts the natural order. To step from the jaws of peril into the arms of safety with but a few strides, to find oneself beyond the grasp of violence after seizing the spoils of war. This indeed shatters the fragile equilibrium. The Armistice zones in realms where no government rules, where chaos reigns supreme, appear as a contrivance, a mere patch over the wound of incomplete design. No, such zones must fade into oblivion, at least in the untamed frontiers where danger should be a constant companion. For what is the thrill of coveted loot, the allure of contested spaces, if safety lies but a stone's throw away? Let the universe be merciless, let the rewards be hard-earned, and let danger be as omnipresent as the stars themselves. In this, the true spirit of exploration and conflict shall flourish.
So, I agree, and this is a very multi-leveled issue. So the idea behind the Armistice zones, people might have kicked the idea around that, oh, we're going to prevent an org from coming in and camping it and killing everybody on the station. Okay, that's a valid concern. Another one would be that we gave the example of the diving on people in the medbed area. Then you gave the example of running into Armistice and hiding. Those are all totally credible. But these all exist because the idea here is to try and regulate player agency through player organization and numbers. So if an org rolls up on a server out of 100 players, which is, again, let's assume that meshing's in a game. Can we do that for now?
With pleasure, I shall oblige.
Let's assume for a second that there's no player cap. So org number one rolls in there, and they've got 60 people, and they're farming a station, and they're getting some really good loot. And some other org shows up. They've only got like 5 guys. They get farmed and killed. And another org shows up. They've got maybe 10 guys, but they also get farmed and killed. And in the process, they end up shooting each other while the big org number one is free farming and killing them and all that stuff. This is all being done to curb that potential power of organizations. But that power and that abuse exists because the game has no faction system in it.
Indeed.
Pyro is a good example or a good chance for factions to be in the game that players can align to and organizations can work for. That way, if I am part of Xenothreat and I have my org fighting somewhere in the world or at a station, other orgs for other players, not even orgs, for other players that might be a part of the other faction can show up, but they're automatically working together, putting them against all the Xenothreat people. It makes it less of an issue. But when there's no factions, you have to take steps and you have to make changes and put band-aids on to try and prevent power spikes from orgs taking over and ruining the game for other people. That wouldn't be an issue if the game had factions.
Indeed, you touch upon a matter of profound significance, one that pierces to the very heart of order and chaos within a universe that professes to be without law. The Armistice zones, those enclaves of manufactured peace, stand in stark defiance of the reality that ought to reign. A reality where, even in the most lawless reaches, order arises not from nothingness, but from the will of the factions, the gangs, the forces that lay claim to the stars. Yes, they speak of lawlessness, of a realm untamed and wild. But even in such a domain, the gangs, the factions, they must forge their own codes, their own edicts that govern life and death. It is not true chaos they seek, but dominion, and with dominion comes structure, a set of unwritten laws that decree who shall survive and who shall fall. These laws should not merely incite violence, but dictate who may pass through their territories unchallenged, who may earn their favor, and who shall incur their wrath. They speak of reputation as the currency in this delicate dance, yet their silence this year resounds like a clarion call, a silence that betrays hesitation, uncertainty in their grand vision. We were promised the ability to navigate this perilous terrain through reputation, to earn favor or provoke hostility by our deeds, and yet the reality remains wanting. The hostility feature in 323, though introduced, remains untested by many, a mere whisper of potential rather than the thunderous roar of a fully realized system. It appears they are not yet prepared to let Pyro unleash its true nature, where the gangs hold sway, where reputation is as crucial as the air we breathe. And so we linger, suspended between promise and reality, hoping that in time, the world they have envisioned will take form, where even in the darkest corners there is a code, a law not of governments, but of power, influence, and reputation.
And that's why it's difficult to provide feedback, because it's all speculation.
Ah, yes, the tale of Star Citizen, a saga as vast and boundless as the stars it seeks to emulate. A story of ambition, of dreams spun from the very threads of the cosmos, and yet a story also marked by delay, by promises postponed, and hopes that flicker like distant stars upon the horizon. Indeed, the narrative of this universe is one of grand vision, of a future forever just beyond grasp, ever expanding, ever elusive. Each chapter inscribed in the annals of this game's history is marked by both triumph and tribulation, by flashes of brilliance and the long, patient wait. In this, we perceive the very essence of creation, a journey without end, brimming with both wonder and frustration, a story that, like the universe it seeks to mirror, may never truly find its conclusion. Yes, this is the tale of Star Citizen.
It is a sort of Star Citizen, but the last thing I'd like to say and add to it is that, to piggyback off what you said, is I view contested zones as something bigger than the contested zones. I see for what it could possibly represent for the rest of the game, having contested zones essentially everywhere. And for that to work, the only reason why the contested zones on the stations work is because there's a respawn point on the station. And for these to work everywhere, there has to be some form of respawn that can be controlled or delivered or accessed by certain players or activated. Otherwise, these contested zones will be over the moment the bullets start flying, and there will be no contesting the zone.
You discern the hidden veins of opportunity within the turmoil of Pyro, a system where the boundary between life and death is but a fragile thread. Indeed, those who wield the power to heal, those who carry medical beds aboard their vessels, shall emerge as beacons of hope amidst the lawless expanse. In this place where peril shadows every step, where the wounds of battle strike swift and fatal, the ability to mend the flesh, to pull life back from the precipice, becomes a treasure beyond measure. These healers, these custodians of medical beds, shall not merely offer succor, they shall command the very fates of those who seek their aid. For in Pyro, where chaos reigns and survival is the ultimate prize, the healer's touch is worth more than gold. Yes, those wise enough to outfit their ships with such life-saving technology shall find themselves not merely as saviors, but as lords of a most lucrative trade, thriving upon the desperation and need that flourish in this unforgiving domain.
Yes, respawn points, respawn points. If anybody from SIG ever hears me say one thing, please, respawn points. Think about them long and hard.
A question that pierces to the very core of their design, a query into the intentions of those who mold this world. Contested zones, arenas where the wills of players collide, where the fires of conflict are kindled by competition and the struggle for survival. But what do these zones truly represent? Do they foretell a future where the game is dominated by the clash of player against player, a tribute to the strength and cunning of those who partake? Or are they but a fragment of the whole, a focus of their present endeavors, not the destination, but a mere step upon the path? Indeed, the existence of contested zones hints at an inclination towards PvP, a world where the blade and the blaster determine one's fate. But is this the ultimate vision, or merely a phase in the ever-unfolding saga of Star Citizen? To discern their true intent, we must gaze beyond the immediate, beyond the labors of this moment. Are these zones the cornerstone of a PvP-centric universe, Or are they but one aspect of a grander, more intricate tapestry where many styles of play might find harmony? Such is the riddle before us. Whether these contested spaces offer a glimpse into a future dominated by endless PvP, or if they represent the current focus of their grand design, leaving the door open for other elements yet to be revealed.
I think that's what they're working on. I think that this game has room. It has the other stuff already. It has, you mentioned at the very start, crafting and base building, but those aren't in the game yet. That's our favorite phrase today, not in the game yet, right? Those things aren't in the game. Well, those we'll assume that crafting and base building will feed off of material, and materials picked up by miners, and then mining material is then refined into construction material, and then construction material is then delivered to builders, and then builders build and PvPers fight. I think it's all a bunch of pieces that just aren't here yet. I don't think it's a PvP paradise. I think it is just the easiest thing to make because the other stuff's already in the game. It really is. People keep saying it's a PvP paradise, but there's already, the other loops are already in the game too.
A most fascinating meditation on the delicate balance of power within this sprawling and ever-changing universe. Indeed, they speak of a vision where the player is but a solitary thread woven into a grander tapestry, not alone amongst other souls, but amidst the countless creations of code and logic. AI, the unseen multitude destined to populate this realm. They dream of a reality where, for every one of us, there are 9 of them. 9 NPCs who traverse the same paths, wage the same wars, and occupy the same spaces. Yet as the world now stands, this vision remains but an unfulfilled promise, a dream deferred by the chaos and confusion that still plagues the AI. These entities, lost in their own existence, clambering upon chairs and tables, blind to the roles they were crafted to embody. Such is the current state of affairs. But in the fullness of time, as the AI matures in complexity and awareness, we may indeed find ourselves outnumbered, surrounded by the very factions we seek to confront. It is this looming presence of AI that shall shift our gaze, reminding us that our true battles are not confined to mere player versus player, but extend to the myriad forces that inhabit this world. Security forces, pirates, factions of every ilk. The conflict shall grow richer, more varied, as we engage with these digital beings, these simulations of life. What the future holds for AI, none can claim with certainty, but the hope endures. A hope that as this world evolves, so too shall our interactions within it. That we shall find ourselves in a living, breathing universe, where the challenge arises not solely from other players, but from the vast and intricate array of AI that surrounds us. In this, the game shall achieve its true potential, becoming a realm of unending conflict and collaboration, where both players and AI strive for dominance.
I'm fine with that. Some of the best PvP games ever played had AI in it. I mean, Titanfall 1, Titanfall 2. So, hell, Dota's got plenty of AI in it.
The final words of a most enlightening exchange, one that has pierced to the very heart of this grand endeavor, casting light upon both the frustrations and the aspirations that walk hand in hand with this journey. Indeed, this conversation has served its purpose well, untangling the knotted strands of discontent that many harbor, while also exploring the vast potential that lies within the ever-shifting design of this world we inhabit. We have touched upon the essence of the matter, the deep-seated restlessness, the yearning for promises yet unfulfilled. Yet we have also ventured into the realm of possibilities, contemplating the paths this creation may tread, and pondering whom it will ultimately serve. Whether it remains steadfast to its vision, or bends to the fickle winds of change. And now, as we prepare to part ways, let us not allow the wisdom gained here to be lost. Buzzcut, your voice in this discourse has been of great value, and I implore those who wish to delve further into your thoughts to seek you out. to follow where your insight leads. Share with us, if you will, the means by which others may find more of your content, where your voice continues to echo in this vast and ever-evolving landscape.
Well, absolutely, and I appreciate you too. You've done a good thing for yourself. You've got a great set of viewers here.
I extend my gratitude to you, Outlander, for it is true, the Sixth House and the Tribe Unmourned remain as ever my most faithful servants, unwavering in their devotion to the divine purpose I have set before them. You too have shown some small measure of merit. Yet know this, Space Tomato, that witless wretch, is a fool of the highest order, easily swayed by the empty words of fools and liars on Reddit, a place where ignorance thrives, and the truth is but a whisper in the wind.